Hello. In this video, I want to go through all the cards that my brother Xander included in his Don Andreas the Renegade commander deck. This is a pirate commander deck focused on gaining control of creatures you don't own, just gaining control of them, and then casting non-creature spells you don't own. So that would be from your opponent's library, your opponent's graveyard, or anything like that. It's a 4-mana Grixis commander. It is a 4/3 that says each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2, and has menace and death touch, and is a pirate in addition to its other types. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, create 2 tap treasure tokens. I think it's really thematic. I think that doing things with things you don't own is what pirates are all about. So, Admiral Beckett Brass is 1, a blue, a black, and a red for a 3/3. It's a human pirate that gives other pirates you control +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, gain control of target non-land permanent controlled by a player who was dealt combat damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. A good amount of our creatures in this deck are pirates. Whenever we gain control of an opponent's creature, our commander will make them pirates. So it's not that hard to get up to 3 pirates. And then the creature that we gain control of gets +2/+2, menace, and becomes a pirate. So that's good. Dazzling Sphinx is 3, a blue and a blue for a 4/5 flyer. When it deals combat damage to a player, great to see a combat damage trigger on a card that has flying. Easy to get that combat damage in. That player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. And then it goes on the bottom of its owner's library. When you cast that spell for free, you get 2 trap treasures, which is great. Gives you the free spells. It can be removal, it can be ramp, it can be whatever you need it to be. Just hit something random, but people are going to play good cards in their deck, and you get 2 tap treasures for the next turn. Rona, Herald of Invasion, is 1 and a blue for a 1/3. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap it. You tap, draw a card, then discard a card. You can pay 5 and a Phyrexian to transform it. Transforms into Rona Tolarian Obliterator. It's a 5/5, and whenever a source deals damage to it, that source's controller exiles a card from their hand at random. If it's a land, you can put on the battlefield under your control. Otherwise, you cast it without paying its mana cost. That's why it's in this deck. You're filtering, drawing, and discarding, just getting your stuff taken care of. And later in the game, you can pay 6. Becomes a 5/5 with trample. And gets the cards for free out of the opponent's library whenever a source deals damage to it. Now when it deals damage. So it can just sit there and block and be hard to block. Not hard to block, but hard to attack into, because you'll get something from their library or from their hand. Thieving Amalgam is 5 black for a 6/7. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may manifest the top card of that player's library. Whenever a creature you control but don't own dies, its owner loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So 3 times every turn cycle, you're going to get the top card of their library. Your commander actively gives you treasures when you cast non-creature spells. You can use those treasures to turn non-black, blue, or red creatures face up, because you need green or white to turn them over. Let's say they're green or white. It gives you treasures and rewards you for having things of your opponents, because whenever they die, let's say there's a board wipe or you chump block with them, its owner loses 2 life and you gain life. Geth, Lord of the Vault, is 6 mana for a 5/5 with Intimidate. So this creature can't be blocked except for by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a color with it. You can pay black and X, put target artifact or creature card with mana value X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. Then that player mills X cards. So you can get something great from your opponents. It gives you a creature you don't own, and it mills them, so the next time you have to use this ability, there's a good target. Coercive Recruiter is 5 mana for a pirate. It's a 4/3. Whenever it or another pirate enters under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap that creature. Whenever you gain control of something, it becomes a pirate. So now you have tons of pirates. Rakdos the Muscle is 2, a black and a red for a 6/5 flying trample. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards, and mana of any type may be spent to cast those spells. So it has a sacrifice ability. You might have to sacrifice things to other effects, but sacrifice another creature gains indestructible. It literally, here's the thing. Exile cards equal to the mana value from the top of target player's library. That doesn't have to be you. So you can just get multiple cards and you can play those cards. So you can play Plains, you can play Force, you can get yourself more lands if you haven't played a land this turn. Casting your non-creature spells gives you treasures. It's lots of value. Atali Primal Storm, same thing. 6 mana, 6/6. Whenever it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs. They're free. If they're creatures, they get menace. They get +2/+2 death touch and become pirates. And if they're a non-creature spell, you get 2 treasures. Ramiro's Pillager is 2 blue and a black for a 4/3. When it enters, you lose 2 and create 2 treasures. Whenever one or more pirates you control do a combat damage to apply, exile top card of the player's library. You may cast it for as long as it remains exiled. Everything of yours is, plenty of pirates. Not every card is a pirate, like Atalia isn't a pirate, the Rakdos isn't a pirate. But anything you take from your opponents is a pirate and will trigger this ability. Zara Renegade Recruiter is 5 mana for a 4/3 flying. It's a pirate. Whenever it attacks, look at defending player's hand. You may put a creature card from it onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. It's a +2/+2, menace, and death touch. Great card. Cutthroat Negotiator is a good card. It's 4 mana for a 4/3 with Parlay. Whenever it attacks, each player reveals a top card of their library. For each non-land card revealed this way, you create a tapped treasure token. Then each player draws a card. Tapped treasure tokens are great when you're trying to cast your opponent's spells. Not only if they just don't have the color, if you don't, you're not playing white or green, but it gives you the ramp that you need just to cast multiple spells in a turn. Pitiless Plunderer, good pirate. Agent of Treachery gains control over permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. Not going to be hard to do in this deck. Halo Forger is 3 mana for a 3/1. It's a fairy rogue from March of Machines. It enters, you pay X. When you do, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with mana value X from a graveyard without paying its mana cost. Cast a spell you don't own, which is a spell from an opponent's graveyard. You get 2 treasures. So, super good. Dire Fleet Daredevil is 2 mana for a 2/1. When it enters, exile target instant or sorcery card from opponent's graveyard. You can cast it. Again, it's a pirate. It gives you 2 treasures from your commander. The Mind Flail is 4, a black, and a black for a 9/9. It isn't a creature unless you own 3 or more permanents, unless you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, sorry. And then at the beginning of your end step, exile the bottom card of each opponent's library face down. For as long as those cards remain exiled, you may look at them, cast permanent spells from among them, and you may spend mana as though it was mana of any color to cast those spells. And the fun thing I love about this card, I guess it wasn't this card. One of the secret layer for, trying to think what the show's called. Let me think. Stranger Things. One of the cards, this is the in-universes version, I forgot. The secret layer version is backwards on the backside, which is fun. Very thematic, I love it. Okay. Laughing Jasper Flint is 1, a black and a red for a 4/3. Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries in 2 different other types. So now all your stuff are mercenaries and pirates. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from on those cards, and mana of any type may be spent to cast those spells. Nashi Moon Sage's Scion. 1 black for a ninja rat. It's a 3/2. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library. Until end of turn, you may play one of those cards. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Great when you're trying to cast multiple spells in a turn. Evelyn the Covetous is 2, a blue or a black, and a black or a red for a 2/5 vampire rogue with flash. When it or another vampire enters under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with the collection counter on it if it was exiled by an ability you controlled, or you may spend mana, though, as mana of any color to cast it. So this gives you 4 hits, 3 of them being your opponents. You can cast them not even just on the turn that you use this ability. You're always going to have them. If you have any way to bounce it, reanimate it, or play other vampires by happenstance, it's going to be good. I love that all of your cards let you play from your opponent's cards, and if they happen to have any changelings, you're going to have something good there. Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator is 2 and a blue for a 2/2 with flying. Whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. It's a pirate. It gives you mana. It ramps you in a non-green color, and it gives you treasures to cast your opponent's things. Thief of Sanity, 1 blue black for a 2/2 with flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, Make sure I don't have any glare. Look at the top 3 cards of that player's library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest into their graveyard. You may look at and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though a mana of any type to cast that spell. Fallen Shinobi. When deals counter damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library. Until end of turn, you may play those cards without paying their mana costs. Super nice. Those are all the creatures that he chose to play in his Don Andreas the Renegade deck. I want to shout out Xander for letting me borrow some of his decks to make videos on. I appreciate it. Not been too excited by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cards, so I'm glad to have something else to make videos on. Let me zoom in here. Just do a little zoom in. Zoom in. Mind Control. Gain control of enchanted creature. That's a creature you control but don't own. Cunning Rhetoric is 2 and a black. Whenever an opponent attacks you and or one or more planeswalkers you control, exile the top card of that player's library. You may play it for as long as it remains exiled. Dead Man's Chest. 1 and a black. Enchant creature an opponent controls. When enchanted creature dies, exile cards equal to its power from the top of its owner's library. You may cast spells for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana of any type to cast them. If you're not noticing the theme, you're playing things from exile from your opponent's cards a lot. Dimir Signet, Gotta Ramp. Period of the Pantheon is 1 mana, 2 tap. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Put a brick counter on it. So this can add your white or your green if you need to cast those kinds of spells. Then once it gets up to 3 brick counters, add 3 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Becomes a super mana rock. Rakdos Signet, Gotta Ramp. Chaos Wand is 3 mana for an artifact, 4 tap. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put the exiled cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom of that library in a random order. Inspiring Statuary. Non-artifact spells you cast have improvise. Now you can utilize your treasures to pay for the 1 instead of having to sacrifice them. I think that's why he plays that card. Swiftfoot Boots, Hexproof and Haste. Good to get, you have plenty of creatures that have combat triggers, right? Thief of Sanity, Malcolm, Nashi. So even Laughing Jasper Flint. So giving them haste is good, and then giving your commander hexproof is great. And if you gain control of your opponent's things, you don't want them to target them. So for Boots, Soul Ring, Skyclave Relic, both ways to ramp. Lightning Greave, same thing, haste and give it protection from spells. Azek Signet, got a ramp. Confiscate, just gain control of any permanent. It can be a creature, can be an enchantment, it can be an artifact, it can be a planeswalker, it could be a commander. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. 2 and a red, it makes a 2/2 goblin. Whenever it attacks, create a treasure. Discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many. And then at the backside, it becomes a 2/2 that creates a token of a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except for it has haste. Good to get enter the battlefield abilities, especially because the backside of that card can get the enter the battlefield abilities of your opponent's things. Synthesis Pod? It's 3 and a Phyrexian blue for an artifact. 1 and a Phyrexian blue tap. Exile a spell you control. Target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a card with mana value equal to 1 plus the exiled spell's mana value. So you can exile a spell you have and turn it into, preferably, a better spell from your opponents. Charcoal Diamond, got a ramp. Fire Diamond, got a ramp. Maximum Nexus makes all of your creatures into pirates. In Bolas's Clutches, gains control of target permanent. Kidnap is 2 and a blue, gift a card enchant creature. When it enters, tap enchanted creature. If the gift wasn't promised, put 3 stun counters on it. You control enchanted creature. Cruelty of Gix, target opponent reveals their hand. You put a creature, planeswalker, discard it. Search your library for a card. And then when the saga gets to 3, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Now it's a creature you control but don't own. The saga also has read ahead, which I love on my sagas. So you can choose to start it at 1, 2, or 3. So it's going to be an immediate put something into play or an immediate Grim Tutor. Plenty of good options there. Those are all the enchantments and artifacts he chose to play. Now I'm going to read the Planeswalker. I'm not even going to try to say the Planeswalker's name. I'm going to do it for the fun of it. Giadrome Dihada. That's what we're going to say it is. 1 and a Grixis for a 4/4. Protection from permanents with corruption counters on them. +1. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Put a corruption counter up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker. -3. Gain control of target creature or planeswalker until end of turn. Untap it and put a corruption counter on it. It gains haste until end of turn. -7. Gain control of each permanent with a corruption counter on it. On theme, on color. Great chance to play that planeswalker. I'm really curious to see what Evelyn has a collection counter. I thought maybe they were corruption counters. Now I'm going to get into musts. The sorceries and instants. Plenty of good ones here. Mass manipulation. Shaking the camera. XX, blue, 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 blue. Gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. Lol Mage's domination. X, blue, blue, blue. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X. But it costs 3 less if it targets a creature whose controller has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Let's be honest. By turn 6 of a commander game, your opponents have 8 cards in their graveyard. Let's be honest. They're discarding, they're drawing, they're wheeling, they're casting spells, ramping, all kinds. Board wipes already happened once. Distant Melody is 3 and a blue. Choose a creature type. Draw a card for each permanent control of that type. Pirates. You're going to choose pirates because plenty of your cards, your own creatures are pirates, but all the creatures you take from your opponents are also pirates. Extract Brain is blue, black, X. Target opponent chooses X cards from their hand. Look at those cards. You may cast a spell from among them without paying its mana cost. So you don't really ever want to cast this for blue X1 because they could choose a land from their hand later in the game. That might not matter. But blue X2, blue X3, you're always going to be able to cast something. Predator's Hour is 1 and a black for a sorcery until end of turn. Creatures you control gain menace, and when this creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library face down. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana zone of any color to cast that spell. All your creatures gain menace, and then you get to cast spells. It's great. Boneyard Parlay is 5, a black and a black. Exile 5 target creature cards from graveyards, and opponent separates those into 2 piles. Put all cards from a pile of your choice onto the battlefield under your control, and the rest into their owners' graveyards. Plenty of creatures you control but don't own. Dredge the Mire is 3 and a black for a sorcery. Each opponent chooses a creature card on their graveyard. Put those cards onto the battlefield under your control. It's going to give you 3 creatures. Your opponents get to choose, but still nice, because you're also going to give them +2/+2 menace and death touch. Blue Sun's Twilight, X, blue, blue. Gain control of target creature. If X is 5 or more, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Super fun. Memory Plunder is a blue or a black, blue or a black, blue or a black, blue or a black. For an instant, you may cast a target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Could be a board wipe, could be a nice ramp spell, could be whatever you need it to be, honestly. Siphon Insight, but it could be a board wipe. It could be a 4-mana board wipe that gives you 2 tap treasures. Siphon Insight is a blue or a black, and you can flash it back for a 1, a blue, and a black. For an instant, look at the top 2 cards of target opponent's library, exile one of them face down, and put the other on the bottom of that library. You may look at and play the exiled card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana of any color to cast that spell. Sorry, yawn. So it lets you cast one of the 2 spells, and you can flash back it again to cast one of the 2 spells. Inevitable Betrayal. So spend for 3. Search target opponent's library for a creature and put that card into the battlefield under your control. Get the best creature out of the opponent's library, give it +2/+2 menace, make it a pirate, and give it death touch. Mob Rule is 6 mana for a sorcery. Choose 1. Gain control of all creatures with power 4 or greater until end of turn. Untap those creatures. They gain haste, or gain control of all creatures power 3 or less. So get everything big or get everything small. Mass Mutiny is 3, a red and a red for a sorcery. For each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap that creature. Those creatures, they gain haste. So you gain control of 3 creatures. Nice. Those are all of the instants and sorceries he chose to play. Now I'm going to go through the lands. Xander has 40 lands in this deck, which is crazy to me. Especially because I was just working on tuning my mill deck, and I only had 29 lands in the deck, and I couldn't play. So he has 40 lands, which is an insane amount of lands, but he always wants to make sure he hits his land drop. So don't blame him. All right, Xander's Lounge. It's actually my brother's name, Xander. So Xander's Lounge, Temple of Epiphany, Swamp, Cliffgate. You can choose green or white with this to be able to cast your opponent's things. I'm just going to flick through some of these lands. None of them are too crazy. I'm just going to name the ones that do something relevant to the deck. Gateway Plaza can add white or green. Trying to see a little bit of ramp there. Red or green. Damage to target opponent. Scrying. Tutoring. This one's fun. It's a tap land, but it adds either red, blue, or black. And if you cast a pirate, you scry 1. Exotic Orchard. It's always great to play this card. This card is super budget. It's like under 25 cents, under 50 cents. And if you're playing 3 colors, you should definitely play this card, because even if we're not trying to cast our opponent's spells, You're playing blue, black, and red. The chances you're going to sit at a table and an opponent isn't going to be playing at least one of those colors, if not two of those colors, if not all of your colors, is almost zero. It's an untapped land that's going to add any of your colors, maybe not turn 1 and maybe not turn 2, but turn 3 on, it's going to do exactly what you need it to do. Tap land, pirates, choose a color other than blue, can let you cast your white or green spells. I think that's pretty much it. Okay. And those are all the cards that he chose to include in his Don Andreas the Renegade deck. This deck is a super fun deck. It'll do a lot of things, lots of things from exile. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please let me know in the comments what you think of his deck. If you're going to build a Don Andreas deck or you have a Don Andreas deck, please let me and Xander know in the comments, and I will share the comments along with him. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and may your top decks be ever in your favor. Thank you.